Good morning, everyone. Today is the 14th day of Kislev, beautiful Thursday morning, and we're on page 84 in the Chayenu, new essay 6 in Kuntrish Achrim. We're winding down. We're almost done. Next Tuesday, next Monday, we complete the entire book of Tanya, and Tuesday, we begin anew. Yutas Kislev. Okay. Overview of essay 6. David HaMelech praises the Torah as being like a melody. He was punished because it undermined the true value of the Torah. His intention was the incredible cosmic impact of the Torah, meaning how the seeming minutia of the mitzvahs can affect entire systems of nature, as we talked about. He fell short because the worldly effect of Torah is not its highest praise. It pales in comparison to its being God's pleasurable delight, transcending worldly affairs entirely. So essay 6, when King David HaMelech triumphantly brought back the Aron from captivity in the hands of the Pelishtim, it was placed on a wagon. David had momentarily forgotten the stipulation of the Torah, on the shoulder shall they carry. Not supposed to put it on a wagon. Commenting on this episode, our sages teach that David's forgetfulness came as a punishment for his having referred to the law of the Torah as songs. As Ashir Hazais. We'll get to that in a minute. Your statutes were songs for me in the place of terror. So why should this expression be regarded as an offense? What was so terrible about what David HaMelech did to the point that he was punished? David, Zimrais, Karis Lahu. David, you call them songs? In the Zayar, we find the expression, the praise of Torah in the songs. The whole Hazino is a poem, a song. So why was David punished for calling it a song? Let's understand. What is the praise of Hashem when a particular object is forbidden or permitted? A similar concept is implicit in the pasuk. How great are your works, Hashem? Your thoughts are very deep. So why does this pasuk make the deed precede the thought? Alter Rebbe will soon explain that from an appreciation of God's great works, one begins to understand the depths of his thoughts. Not that you could ever understand it, but you could begin to understand. You could understand it in theory, but not in actuality. Ooh, this is very important, guys. It's known, all the worlds. Okay, this is a Kabbalah, deep Kabbalah, that the exalted and lowly, every part of the worlds are dependent on the meticulous performance of a single mitzvah. Unbelievable. For example, if during the times of the Beis Hamikdash they brought a korban, and the korban is good and valid, then a supernal union in the spheres is effective. All of the worlds are elevated to receive their life force and spiritual assistance. However, Vimshina Shekibel Hadam Ismail Derech Mashal Oishaloi Bechli Shades Kosher Oishah. However, if the korban that was brought was altered, even a little bit, for example, he received the blood of the offering with his left hand, or in a vessel that was invalid, or there was separation, what happens? There's a tremendous cosmic effect, in not a positive way. All the worlds become affected, and the elevations become nullified, as is the life force and sustenance they would have received from the source of life, the blessed, eternal light. So too through the use of valid tefillin. Why are we so particular to check our mezuzah and tefillin? We know the opposite. God forbid, if even one little letter is not correct, then the whole mitzvah doesn't happen. And what happens? When you do the mitzvah properly, there's a revealed supernal intellect of Zed Anpin and Nukva. These are things that are, way beyond us, but there's unions of spiritual significance that we can never imagine. even the malachim. This is major stuff. V'diktach kechad nifsalin umistalkin hamoichin, through the omission of one required detail, that are invalidated and intellect departs. Okay, Gavna b'diktuke mitzvahs leisa, say the same applies to the detailed requirements of the prohibitory commandments. A single detail affects all the worlds. It's very interesting. The fact that a Yid has a neshama, the fact that we're born, Yud and I were learning this last night in class, we're the Eibishter's children. We really don't have to do anything to be special. We are special by the very fact that we're Onim Atem Hashem Elikechem, you're God's children. But after that comes a lot of responsibility. We're talking about the royal families, a family from kings and queens. The children have to act a certain way. Once they're born in, all they are is just be alive, and they're special. But now they have responsibilities. You can say, yeah, but all these restrictions. Okay, as human beings, you could choose not to do them. But if you're sons and daughters, if you're princes and princesses of the king, then you have a responsibility to act royal and regal. It means carrying yourself a certain way, the way you talk, the way you act, the way you think. So when we do a mitzvah, everything has to be particular. The royals in certain, they can't go outside dressed a certain way. They don't talk a certain. They have to uphold a certain. So therefore, v'hilka, think about it. He's boinin magodo masecha Hashem sheberiboy ha'ilameis v'chol tzavam. Think about how great are the works of Hashem, and in all the worlds and all their hosts. All of these are literally null relative to any one of the specific requirements of the Torah. Imagine all the worlds, the angels, the heavenly spheres, whatever it is, spirituality that are, beyond the physical experience, are waiting for a Yid to do a mitzvah. Like, man, what's the big deal if I do it this way, if I do it that way? If I take it with the left hand versus the right hand. So make machshava eliyanu v'chachma yisparech asher b'dikto kal oilim kol oilim es mekava chayusam v'shifam oilahipechas v'shalom. It's so powerful that through the observance of one minor specific creation, all the worlds ascend and receive their life force and their spiritual sustenance, or the reverse, God forbid. In the case of detailed requirement of a mitzvah, loisaseh, a prohibition, transgression brings about, God forbid, a descent in all the worlds. Imagine if we're doing things positive, and that feeds, so to speak, all the angels and all the worlds. So the opposite is also true. In this we may ponder that the depths of God's thought, which is boundless and endless. And which infinity transcends the vitality of all the worlds. Their entire force, which gives them life and sustenance, issues from a minor requirement of God's thought. That's a mitzvah. The mitzvah comes from the thought of Hashem for you to do this. This requirement being drawn down from its source, namely the depths of Hashem's thoughts that specified it. Analogously, man's hair issues from his brain, as is known from the Tikunim Idra Rabba. It's very interesting because hair, you can cut it, doesn't hurt, but it constantly grows. It's alive. So you say, what's the big deal? This was the delight of King David. May he rest in peace. As he sang to gladden his heart in his Torah during this time of anguish. He was so overjoyed when he contemplated how the world is of no account relative to one minor specific detail of the Torah. He was so overjoyed when he contemplated how the entire world is of no account relative to one minor specific detail of the Torah. I don't get that. He was so excited that he was singing. It brought him through his most difficult and moments of despair. He would read the Torah or think about the Torah and dance and sing, and that would bring him up, lift up his spirits. So therefore, you can imagine if somebody's going through such a tough time and they find something that would bring them to such a great happiness. So he called the Torah the songs. Okay, that's not it wasn't correct, but you can't fault him for that, right? Although we know that the tzaddikim are held to a much higher standard, so that's why he was punished. The takeaway: Torah study can be energizing. The creation and sustenance of this beautiful world is dependent on the Torah. This, however, is not the ultimate significance and preeminence of the Torah. So what is? You want to learn about that? Come back tomorrow. I'm going to leave you hanging, so you come back tomorrow. Okay, Chavra, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.